Hey everyone, this is Mike, and today we're going to be talking about a comfy job, my personal favorite comfy job to play when I go into Party Finder, and that is going to be the Warrior. Now there's a couple of different reasons as to why Warrior is the job for me, and I'm going to be going over all of those in today's video. Now you might be wondering, Mike, didn't you say that Gunbreaker is your favorite tank and maybe even your favorite job in the game a couple of times before? And that is very true. I have said that many times before, that Gunbreaker is one of my favorites, if not my favorite job in the game, but it doesn't mean that I always want to be playing it. And one of the main reasons for that is that Gunbreaker requires a decent amount of effort to play. You have a very busy rotation. If you don't know the fights inside out, then sometimes you're gonna run into places where, oh shit, there's a tank buster happening and I don't have any defensive cooldowns, but I'm also pressing a million of global cooldowns for my damage rotation, so it's kind of hard to fit those defensive cooldowns in there if you don't know exactly when those tank busters are going to be happening. Now, of course, I've been playing a lot of Gunbreaker in Savage for my optimization runs, so I know where the tank busters are happening, so I can press my defensive cooldowns in advance so that I don't need to press them during my damage rotation. But with Warrior, you don't really have that problem. You have very few of global cooldowns that you have to press for your rotation, meaning that you have a lot of places where you can press those defensive cooldowns for when a tank buster or a rate-wide damaging attack was going to happen, even though you might not know exactly when they happen, so you can just press them when you see the cost bar happening. Another thing is that moving bosses on Gunbreaker can be quite annoying as well, because whenever you go into that burst window, you're pressing again a lot of off-global cooldowns, and trying to move a boss and executing off-global cooldowns usually doesn't really work all that well together, so moving bosses as a Gunbreaker feels kind of annoying at times when it is during that burst window, whereas again with Warrior, you don't really have that issue since you barely have any off-global cooldowns to press. Now, another reason why Warrior is a really nice fit is because Warrior has a lot of ability to save themselves. If, for example, the healer isn't paying all that much attention to you, you can just throw in a quick equilibrium and heal yourself up quite a bit. I do know that Gunbreaker has Aurora, but it is a healing over time effect, so it won't just save you from like that one auto attack or something that might kill you before the healers are able to get you back up. Whereas with something like an equilibrium, you can definitely do that. Another thing you can do is throw Nascent Flash on there, and for example, if you're playing it in dungeons, Nascent Flash is just busted in my opinion, because you can get so much healing from it. If you want to get more information on all of the healing aspects of Warrior, I made a video on that. I'll link it in the comments down below, or in the description down below of the video, if I do not forget about that. But basically, Warrior is a really cool healing tank and has a lot of self-sustain, which makes it very comfortable in Party Finder or in Duty Finder to play as well, because you might not always be paired up with the best healers, and sometimes they might not be noticing that you're almost about to die, and then you have some potential to save yourself. Now, of course, I do know that Paladin is quite good in this aspect as well, but when it comes down to Paladin trying to save themselves with the Clemency, you're going to be losing damage for that, and that's not always as fun, so to speak, because of course Final Fantasy XIV is mainly a DPS game, so you want to try to do as much damage as possible, and for me, having to disrupt my damage output to save myself is not fun. Of course, I'll still do it if it is needed, but it doesn't feel as good as a Warrior just pressing Nascent Flash, throwing on 1 or 2 Inner Chaoses and just seeing your HP bar go up from the damage that you are doing. That's just very satisfying to me personally. Now, of course, another reason why Warrior is kind of my go-to pick to play in Party Finder is because it is a tank, and usually tank spots are the last ones that are the ones being filled in a Party Finder environment. Of course, if you're going to Duty Finder, tank queues are usually really fast as well. I do know that healer queues are also very fast, but in general, both of these jobs or both of these roles have a relatively fast queue going into Duty Finder. Now, of course, when I go do dungeons, I usually play White Mage, which I'll make a video on tomorrow, but when it comes down to Party Finder, I usually play Warrior, or just tank in general, because those spots are usually the last ones to fill, so it's very easy to find parties on them. Now, another reason why Warrior is because of its simplicity. As I said before, Gunbreaker is a very busy job to play, Warrior not so much, so it's a lot easier on your hands. I, for example, play with a mouse, so my thumb is pretty much the thing that is always going to be pressing those buttons, and with Warrior it's just so much more chill to play than something like a Gunbreaker, because I've got literally half of the actions that I need to press, and thus it's a lot more chill when I go, for example, for some mount farming and I do it the same fight 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times in a row. It just makes it so that I don't get as tired, so to speak, as quick, and I can just have a chill time play my job. Maybe if I'm streaming on the side, then I can just have some conversations with the people as well, because I don't need to pay as much attention to my rotation either, because warrior is a fairly simple job to play. But on the other hand, it is still interesting enough to not get bored. For example, my opinion on Paladin has always been that it is a little bit too simple. I do know that there is some really crazy optimization stuff that you can do with Paladin, but it is a little bit above my pay grade. As I said, I barely play Paladin, so I really do not care about optimization when it comes down to playing Paladin. So that's why I just, if I ever play it, I use the general rotation, and that one I do find to be a little bit too simple. Whereas with Warrior, you still feel like you have this kind of mini game that you are playing. You're trying to use as many Storm's Paths combos to get as much beast gauge as possible. You need to make sure that you dump the beast gauge so that you don't overcap it. You need to make sure you have enough so you can use your upheaval on cooldown, and then you also need to pay attention to your infuriate so that you don't overcap that, and that you try to use those infuriate stacks during burst windows when there's, like, for example, a trick attack or an embolden around, something like that. And then on the other hand, you also still need to use that Storm's Path combo to keep your damage buff up as well, and then try to make it all work together, that you have enough resources ready for when your in release comes around, or just the other way around, that you don't have too many resources so your in release won't overcap your infuriate, that kind of stuff. So it still makes it so that even though Warrior is a fairly simple job to play when it comes down to its rotation, there are still enough elements in there that keep it fun to play, and that it might not feel super brain dead to play like something simpler like a Paladin. Again, as I said, Paladin has some really big brain stuff going on with it as well, but those I don't really play enough Paladin in order to learn all of that stuff and to care about that, as I said. And that's why Warrior is kind of like a happy medium for me. It's simple to play, but there are still some elements that make it so that you still think a little bit about what you are doing, but it is still a very chill job to play. So that is one of the reasons why Warrior is kind of my go-to pick to play in Party Finder. It's easy to find parties with, you can kind of save yourself with the healing that you have. It is a very simple rotation to play, so you can pay attention to the mechanics, or I can also pay attention to the Twitch chat if I am streaming. And then is also just a fun job to play, in my opinion. Warrior was one of the first tanks that I really started playing. Started out with Dark Knight, very quickly fell in love with Warrior once I got that to level 60 back in Heavensward. And then it was also my first job that I mained in a raid environment back in Stormblood as well. So it's always been kind of my go-to job to go towards whenever I felt like tanking something and just having a chill time. Of course, if I do want to put in some extra effort, or when I go into Savage raiding and I want to try hard a little bit more, Gunbreaker will still be my favorite tank to play. But when it's just to go into Party Finder, have a chill time, stream, talk with my friends, not care too much about the rotation or something, then a Warrior will be that comfort pick for me. So that's gonna be it for this video. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for supporting me, and I'll see you in the next one.